o'clock. I'd like to call the Monday, February 22nd, 2021 Grafton School District Board of Education meeting to order and ask all present to please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on, we've got two items on the consent agenda this evening: an approval of the minutes from the January 25th, 2021 board meeting and a statement of receipts and expenditures for January 21. We have a motion to approve those items.
So moved.
Is there any question? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, aye? Aye. Opposed? It passes. Thank you. On to item 4, the John Long Middle School presentation. Mr. Deering.
Good evening, everyone. We're excited to be coming to you here. We're going to do something a little bit different. I know we're in a pandemic and we've all kind of done some different types of things. So tonight it's kind of like a newscast, and we're reporting to you live from John Long Middle School as we speak. New this year, we started the first Lego League team that we brought to John Long, which also leads into the high school's first tech team, first tech challenge. So I have a team at John Long ready to present to you. And when they're done presenting, they'll have an opportunity for you to ask them questions. So this is the first part of our presentation. So I'm handing it over to Team Pufferfish from John Long Middle School.
Thank you, Mr. Deering. Hi, we're the Pufferfish. Hi, we're the Pufferfish, and I'm Gabriel Selko.
I'm Nancy, I'm JP, and I'm Avery Didier. So, what is our project? The theme for this year of First Lego League is staying active. The topic of staying active that we chose was swimming. We chose swimming because all our group members both swim for fun and competitively. A problem with swimming is kids either have trouble swimming or they don't know how to. Our solution to this is our pufferfish balloon. Balloon is a robotic, flexible pufferfish that is a tool helper. Monitor your kids while they swim and direct swimming exercises. Balloon has many sensors such as temperature to tell the body temps of the young swimmer, boundary sensors. These check where young swimmers are in the pool and what their boundaries are, and heart rate sensors to tell if your child has a safe and healthy heart rate. Our pufferfish is supposed to be like a beach ball. It's round with a small head. The pufferfish will have a compartment where we can keep lifesavers and floats. All the robotics will be inside the beach ball in the middle, but the robotics will be safe from ever bouncing around. So our bot design for the missions, so each year we made it so that we can adapt to the missions. One way that we did this is we added a hook arm to the top for 2 missions. One of them is to lift the backrest of a bench off the ground and to pull a tire. We also made it a rectangle so that it can fit inside the inspection zone and maneuver its way around the board. And the robot has multiple sensors, such as a color sensor, which is on the bottom right here.
So, next up is how we program. So, first we choose a mission or task that we want to complete. Then we look around the board and see if there's anything that we have to work around. Then we head to our computer and open a new program. Then we add the correct moving blocks to get the bot to its destination at the beginning, where there's a play button. The first block that you'd see there is the play button. That's what starts all the program. Then after that, there's a move tank block, which moves these two large driving motors separately. Then there's a move steering, which is at the end, which controls both the motors together. And then there's a medium-sized motor, which is not used, but it's right here on front. And then there's also a weight block right about in the middle of that program, which tells the bot to wait a certain amount of time. Now let's show how it works. Mr. Gearing, if you need to repin us.
You are up and you are good to go.
Great, so let's run the program. So the first thing that was done is the play button was pressed, then the bot moved forwards, and now it is very slowly, or it waited, and then now it is very slowly pushing that arm forwards. It is pushing it forward so slow, so the mechanism does not jam up. Then the bot is told to head back home.
What are the benefits of participating in First Life? It is an introduction system from ages 4 to 16.
When you are on a first level league team, you are learning teamwork and how to communicate with your peers.
When you participate in First Lego League when you are in 8th grade, it helps you get a head start for robotics class that's offered in high school.
I like First Lego League because you can learn a simplified version of programming because it's easier than other programs such as Python and Java. Thank you for watching us. We're the Pufferfish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
That was it. Questions?
Okay.
If you guys can't hear, let me know though, okay?
What did you find the most challenging part of this programming?
So the question was, what did you find to be the most challenging part of the programming?
Well, for me, it was figuring out how long we had to go and how slowly we had to go because, like, you have to be really precise for this one. So, that was the most challenging for me, I would say.
Are you guys able to compete against
there any
other
other
teams this year?
Are you guys able to compete against other teams this year? Or how do your competitions work this year?
Well, this year, we're recording, we're gonna be on a Google Meet with the judges, and then they're gonna judge us. We're not gonna, I think we're gonna compete with another team.
We are competing with other Grafton teams.
Yeah, we're gonna compete against other Grafton teams.
So they're scrimmaging and they're use kind of this format in their competitions.
When do
Yeah.
they, when do they meet and how often do they meet?
When do you meet and how often do you meet?
We meet every Monday and Wednesday, from the end of the school day to 4:30. And during those meetings, we either work on a program or a presentation.
Excellent.
Other questions for Team Pufferfish?
No, good job.
I like your shirts, very nice.
They love your team shirts.
Yes.
Oh, thank you,
Thank
thanks.
you.
My mom, our mom made them.
Yes,
Oh,
they're
very
Oh.
nice,
Team manager made them.
very nice.
Team band. Very cool. If there are no other questions, we will let Team Pufferfish conclude their night. I don't know if they've had their pizza party yet, but that's next on the docket. So thank you so much, Team Pufferfish. You guys did a great job. So we will go through some other pieces. I mean, I have a couple data points I wanted to share with everybody. Canvas, obviously, we've been pushing that largely here in our 612 system. And what we did here, you'll see the 1920 is in blue, 2021 is in red. 1920, what we did is we were about 55% of the way through the year when we ran the data. So we took last year's total numbers because we weren't able to just stop it at 55, and we took 55% of the totals from last year. Many of them which came, as you all recall, about a week ago. It started about a year ago from that point on to finish the school year. But this is to show you just the vast difference in how much we've been using Canvas this year. You can see we have over 3,000 assignments now that have been done and completed using Canvas. Discussion topics are up from last year. The number of files that teachers have uploaded. Media recordings looks like it's about the same, but that's only using the media platform, a media presentation platform in Canvas that doesn't include things like Flipgrid, Screencastify, or other things that kids are creating. So we just wanted to share this data point to show, it's become a routine for our teachers to use Canvas, and whenever this is done, we can continue to use these practices in the comfort that our students and staff have had with using assignments and discussion topics. So again, wanted to just bring that highlight point to you and how much we are using Canvas. Wanted to just touch quickly on some math projections. I know at the curriculum board meeting we looked at some things, but this is from the last 4 years. We'll go through 6th and 7th grade. At the winter point, what we were projected to score on for advanced and proficient combined on the forward test. And I'm sharing this with you to show we closed down a year ago on March 13th. We took one day on Monday, and we've had teaching ever since. And this kind of data is the kind of data that's going to show how hard our staff and our students have worked to continue to try to maintain or even grow where we're at in some of these cases. So here, projected proficiency for 6th grade math in winter this year, as you can see at the end, is our second highest in the last 4 years right now at this point in the year. 7th grade math took a little bit down, but again, not the lowest that we've had in the last 4 years, and maintaining in that area. When you look at reading, 6th grade reading, this one kind of jumps off the chart at you. We've been in a pandemic, and our kids right now are projected to continue growing with their reading for our 6th grade cohort. So it just shows, and this is a shout out also to our elementary schools for continuing to read, and they did as 5th graders coming up in the 6th grade. Kids continue to read, and we're seeing that. 7th grade, stepped down a little bit from last year, but again, second highest in the last 4 years. So I share this data with you to show that our teachers and our students have continued to work to maintain the excellence in our school district. And our projected proficiency, when you look at this data, doesn't cause you to be aligned. It shows that our kids have worked, they're continuing to grow, they're continuing to learn, and push forward. When you look at Aspire, this is new this year, so this is like baseline data for us. I know that we're going to talk more at the April curriculum committee meeting when we look at this from an 8-11 perspective. But what you have here is you have our 8th grade winter Aspire in the areas of English, reading, and math. And one piece I wanted to highlight is it's not on, you can't see fall, but math was at 49% in the fall. So they've grown 11% towards grade level readiness, meeting the benchmarks. Reading is up 7% and English is up 8%. And as you can see, English is already at 88% meeting the grade level benchmark halfway through the school year. So again, showing how high of a level we're at in the Grafton School District, and we'll continue to push forward. And like I said, in a month from now at the curriculum meeting, we'll dig deeper into this and other data points from Aspire and what we're collecting and what the feedback from our staff has been, and how students and how valuable they feel the data has been for them when we look at this. Just wanted to highlight another group, National Junior Honor Society, just some things they've done throughout the year, again, trying to continue to stay involved in the community. They've donated over 500 pounds to family sharing for Thanksgiving food drive. We raised $305 in selling candy canes. I mean, we were like, we're selling candy canes. How much can we really gain in 1 week from selling candy canes? $305. Aurora sent a representative. They were shocked that they were getting $300 from a week of candy cane sales. I said, well, kids love sugar, so they'll spend any sort of money that their parents give them to go to school with. And they use that to buy things and some extra stuff for their healthcare workers just during the holiday season. Recently ran a Conversational Hearts candy sale. Again, over $100 it was kind of a last minute thing to go into the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Currently shoveling snow for senior citizens. We had a partnership with them. So some of our kids are signing up for the shoveling snow for senior citizens. Maybe Jamie Schofield would have liked them to shovel snow to help us here as well. We've had a little bit lately. And you can see this, they also did a fall cleaning at local parks. So they went around and were picking up trash this fall, helping keep, you can see them down by the river there at Veterans Park and at Centennial Park. They were collecting trash this fall. Now, here's something that I've tried to do something maybe a little bit different. So I have 3 individuals come up and join us. I have 3 spots for you up here. Every year, we hire staff, and you guys approve them, but you never hear from them. So I have 3 new staff members that joined the Grafton School District this year, and they're here tonight. And it's probably a little stressful for them, right, to ask them to come in front of the board, but I'm going to have them introduce themselves. So when you introduce yourself, give yourself, your role, and how many years you've been in the education field. We'll start here.
All right, my name is Sharon Kildow. I teach 7th grade math. I've been teaching for 10 years, all in middle school, mostly math, but I've taught the gambit from language arts to social studies to even computer science. This is my 2nd career. I used to be in IT as a software developer.
My name is Taylor Strominger, and this is my 1st year in education. I teach art at the middle school, so.
And at the?
I teach ceramics at the high school as well, ceramics and metals, so.
My name is Rachel Bronick, and I'm the school counselor, and this is my 4th year.
So kind of like, I'm kind of stealing a little bit though from Dr. Gunnarsson. He kind of did, he had some questions last time the students answered. So I had some questions that we're just going to go through and have them answer to share with you kind of their first year feelings and where we're at. And then after that, it'll be open for you to also ask questions of them. So I asked them, what makes JLMS and the Grafton School District a great place to work for?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is the people. They're so friendly and so helpful. I just felt like home from the time I came there. And another thing I have to comment on is the community, because I see a lot of the things of the community doing for the school district, and then just seeing what the Honor Society is doing, it's such a nice blend there. I really, really like that.
I would agree with the staff and the support. I feel that as soon as I got here that I was welcomed in, and even the teachers and the faces, with less collaboration across the school, just because of the year that it is, I still feel welcomed by everyone, and I feel like everyone reaches out to greet me and say hi. So I really appreciate that, especially as art. I think that sometimes I get stuck there just in the art realm. So that and just endless support. I feel like everyone that I go to, if I ask a question, if they don't feel that they're able to answer it, they direct me towards who can. So I really, really appreciate that.
For me, I'm a Grafton graduate myself, and so it's actually really nice to be on the other side of that. I had great experiences as a high schooler here, and it's nice to be able to work with students and hopefully provide the same positive experiences, and working with phenomenal teammates. And I've been so fortunate to collaborate with both of them this year, working with students and supporting them. So I definitely echo what both of them have said as well.
Awesome, thank you. What sets JLMS apart from previous schools that you've worked for or in?
Okay, there's a lot of them, so I'll try not to talk too long. One thing is the communication. I think it's great what we get from Kevin. It's just the right amount. We have our meetings regularly. We hear what we need. We're done. We move on. From the district, Melissa's been great as far as sharing information. Another thing is the support for the students. Rachel and Allie are just amazing. It's like some places I've been, it's like you're struggling with students, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's really too bad. And it's like they've got it all figured out here. It's like we have systems that are put in place, and that the students don't get lost. And on the other side of it is our shout outs and our students of the month, so we make sure that we're constantly doing that positive feedback to the students as well. So, I mean, yeah, I could probably go on forever, but those are two that really stay. Oh, God, I almost forgot the biggest one. The support you guys give to us for the collaboration time, for the days you're giving us for this virtual learning. I can reach out to those students that are virtual. I only have one for my class period, and I'm working with a class, so to have that time that you're giving us is just amazing. So thank you very much for that. It just makes it doable, so thank you.
Taylor felt good because this is her first job, so she got out of one question 2 minutes ago.
I would say I think that Darling is such a positive environment. You don't have that in every school, which is kind of what Sharon alluded to before. But it's positive and it's fun to come to work, which is really nice. And it's nice to work with people despite being in a pandemic, that it doesn't feel like you're always in a pandemic. You're able to have fun and you just build positive relationships right away, and kind of overlook some of the other things that aren't so great.
Kind of building off of that, you guys have mentioned about the support. Maybe talk to us about how as being a new staff member, how the mentorship program has worked out, and how you feel we've done there.
Okay, well, there's really two people that I have to shout out to that one for. Is Elizabeth Menti. She's my mentor, and she's been great. She's always there to tell me what I need to know. I know to go to her for questions, and just the whole thing. She knew exactly what we needed to be doing each month at our meetings, so that there was nothing that was falling through the cracks. And then Kayla Miller is my counterpart in 7th grade math, and she's just amazing too, as far as where, how things operate and stuff. So I really don't feel at a loss for anything, and then the office always is there if you need anything too, so.
She's talking about Sue, Elizabeth, and Kaylee.
Yeah, they're very, very supportive.
I would say I've been working with Robin Morgan. She's my mentor, and she is so well-spoken with everything, and just has been an immense resource for me. So we meet a couple of times a week, and she's always there asking me questions, following up on things that I've brought up to her. She helps bring things to my attention that may not have been on my radar. And just she, with her wealth of knowledge with STEM and engineering, she also has a really good understanding and knowledge of art. So it's a good blend for us to be able to work together on that. That if I'm talking about a concept that I'm working on with students, she knows what I'm talking about. So it's really helpful to be able to collaborate with her in that way.
My mentor is Allie Niemeyer, and she's been such a great teammate to have, to be able to partner with her and work together with students, especially when you need to bounce ideas off of each other and come up with new plans when you're dealing with some of our more challenging students, and being able to do that. But also, I have to give a shout out to Rick. He's been so helpful the past few months with different issues that I've had with Skyward, or just trying to figure out reports and things like that. So even just being able to reach out to different people, and they're so helpful and get back to you right away, has been really great, even though I know that they are so busy as well.
Awesome. And the one question I'm most excited about, because this is why we're all here, it's about the kids. So what do you find most rewarding about working with kids in Grafton?
I find overall they're just very respectful kids, and they really do want to do a good job. And along with that, their parents too. We're all working together. We're on the same team. And they're just a delight.
Yeah, building off of that, I think that there's a strong drive for success from a lot of the students in this district. And especially in the art room, there's this big emphasis for creativity, which I think can be expressed in many different ways, not just in art. But it's really cool for me to see the emphasis that students put on their artwork, and the great efforts they're going into in trying their best with that. And also definitely the parent support that comes from that. So if there's something going on at home, being able to clearly communicate with parents has been a huge help. So and the students also have that good relationship with their parents, that they know if there's parent contact, they're also communicating together as well. So I really appreciate that, and with it being my first year, it's just been fun to build the relationships with the students. So it's cool to see how that's going throughout the year, and just seeing the students really start to open up to me with 7th and 8th grade, having a new art teacher. So it's just I like building those relationships and having fun with the kids and enjoying learning.
I think that one of the most rewarding things is just watching how kind the students are. When you're in the hallway, they're helping each other. They hold the door open for each other when they walk in the morning. They're just so polite and kind, and it's nice to be in that environment and work with them, and they're so willing to pitch in and help you if you ask them to do a small project or any little thing. They're just so kind and helpful, and it's so rewarding to see that, especially at the middle school age, because I think that middle schoolers sometimes get a bad rap. And, but I wouldn't say that was true of John Long students at all.
Your opportunity to ask myself or any of our staff members here questions about John Long Middle School.
Can I add one more thing about other districts I've been for? There was one that I met, was the tech, was the other thing I said. I had a bunch of them. The system that they have for when you need help, it's amazing that you just send an email and boom, they're there to help take care of it for you. I've been in districts where it's like, well, you know, when they feel like getting around to it, so you just kind of work with it. So I just love that. So don't back off on your, the tech support. You're doing a good job. Thanks. Sorry.
Other questions?
I guess one question that I have, I mean, it's obviously been a unique year, and we've asked this to a couple other groups that have come in, but what's one thing that you've had to go through this year or experience that you think you're gonna be able to continue with in the future?
I would say for me, delivering lessons to so many grade levels can be, our classrooms is very challenging. So Allie and I have created like videos for social emotional learning and being able to share those out, and I think that's something that we'd like to continue to practice so that every student is able to get those lessons, but we're not taking away from instructional time because we're offering them during our SOAR block of time.
Great.
Yeah, I would say a very similar thing with that. It's really pushed me to create demo videos of what I'm doing in the art room and like demonstrating those techniques. So I have this resource then for students for if they miss class for a day, or if they went virtual and didn't have the supplies and now they have to come back. So it's a good resource for them to be able to access that. Or if they just need a good reminder on how to do a technique, they can go back and look at that, and I can refer them back to that, as opposed to taking away some of that time to reteach that same skill to a student, like over this, like if they missed a class, like taking away from the beginning of class to show them that. So it's a really good resource for me to be able to offer that to students.
And the reason I hesitated is because what I really gained a lot of this year is being able to use technology to make this work and to differentiate it for students, to give them the extra support they want, all of that. You know, a lot of that will stay, but on the other hand, with math, we really want to be collaborating and working together with it, and that's been really difficult with COVID. And so the new program we're using, Illustrative Math, is a lot about that, with problem solving and learning from each other, and that's been really kind of limited. So we've used some technology to try to work with that, but I just, it's, you know, so I'm sure I'll keep some of that with me, but I'm really looking forward to being able to let them get at a table together and really put their noses together and figure it out.
Thank you.
I would just add one thing, like what we did tonight is something to remember when we move forward. Like, you don't always have to bring the whole group here. Now we can realize, like, our technology, I think when we brought Brett and the band 2 years ago, we could have just done that now, and you could have listened to them from it, because we had to bring all the equipment and everything over. They could have been able to stay at. So it's just thinking, it helps us think differently about how we do things moving forward.
Absolutely. Great.
Any other questions? Rachel, just a question for you. First year here, but fourth year in school counseling. And so my question to you is, in regards to COVID and what you're experiencing here this year, the nature and extent of pressures and stresses and things that you're seeing COVID-related, how real are they, and how, you know, real are they manifested in our middle school kids?
I think that kids are incredibly resilient. Many students are just kind of rolling with the punches, which is amazing and so great. And I know they would much rather all be able to sit at a lunch table with their friends and not have to wear their masks. But then we have some kids who do struggle significantly with coming back to school. Even from, we were thinking about from March last year, like what a significant impact that had on students. And so there are some students who are really struggling coming back because they did have limited interactions with students. So overall, I think the kids have done really well and have been able to adapt to the situation that they've been presented. But there are some kids who we had in school isn't anywhere near what their normal is. And so they've done an incredible job of maintaining social distancing and hand sanitizing and the things that most middle schoolers probably didn't think about that much beforehand. But yeah, they're incredible to watch.
Good, thank you. Other questions? So if not, I just think it is rewarding, to say the least, to hear the continued growth and the continued gains at John Long Middle School and the strong proficiencies that you raise despite the COVID challenges. None of that is by accident. I am certain of that there are great plans, much collaboration, strong communication and relationships, and just a whole bunch of dedicated staff, parents, and students. So thank you all for your work, for your first year, despite the trying circumstances, and for bringing about great results for our John Long Middle School kids.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Can you come from the board?
Okay, let's move on to the superintendent's report.
Yes, it is National Public Schools Week, and so Monday through Friday, so it's across the nation. It's a chance for us to celebrate public schools. So we're the one institution that educates students regardless of ability, race, wealth, language, religion, or country of origin. So it's a week set aside to sort of strengthen the pledge that we have to strengthen the future of our country, and an opportunity for people to support public schools. So we want to thank our staff that makes a difference every day for our students. You see a couple of them here now, and you can hear Robin in the background with students. I mean, every month now we're seeing people that are making an impact on our kids, and it's a great opportunity to celebrate the work that our staff is doing, and so we want to recognize that. And then it is a Wisconsin DPI proclamation of Career and Technical Education Month, and the proclamation says, whereas the Association for Career and Technical Education has designated February 1 through 28, 2021 as Career and Technical Education Month, and whereas career and technical education increases graduation rates and improves academic performance through meaningful experiences, thus improving the quality of education, engaging students, preparing them for careers in post-secondary education, and giving all students leadership opportunities in their fields and in their communities. And whereas career and technical education programs provide Americans with a school-to-careers connection and are the backbone of a strong, well-educated workforce, which fosters productivity, innovation, and entrepreneurship in business and industry, and contributes to America's leadership in the global marketplace. And whereas profound economic and technological changes in our society are rapidly reflected in the structure and nature of work, thereby placing new and additional responsibilities on our educational system. And whereas the ever-increasing cooperative efforts of career and technical educators with business and industry stimulate the growth and vitality of our local economy and the entire nation by preparing graduates for career fields forecasted to experience the largest and fastest growth in the next decade. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Carolyn Stanford Taylor, State Superintendent of Public Instruction, do hereby proclaim in the state of Wisconsin February Career and Technical Education Month to celebrate and promote the valuable training opportunities for Wisconsin students, our future workforce. And obviously with some of the experiences that our students are able to experience at the middle school and at the high school, there's definitely opportunities for our students to be involved in this month and the activities that we have. I also have an update from the GEF from Karen Powell, who said that they are moving, the GEF is busy planning 2021 events and programs. So they are moving forward with another Night of Giving event on the evening of Friday, June 4th. It's going to be an outdoor event with all necessary COVID precautions. The event will include a wine tasting, reverse raffle, and silent auction. The location I don't think has been finalized yet. Last time I spoke with them, they were working on that, but it is planning on an outdoor event. And then the Color Blast, we are hopeful we can proceed with the Color Blast again later in the year, whether it be held in person or virtual is still being discussed and depends on the status of COVID in the community. Hope to have a decision by April. So if you remember last year, we did Color Blast at home. We moved and we found what are those packets called? Those color packets. Maybe they're just called color packets, okay. Has to be like a fancy name for it. I don't know, we found some of them. So now nervous that they're going to get spilled at the house. But yeah, so hopefully we'll be in person. And the Golden Apple Awards will be held again in 2021. Exact timing of these is still to be determined. These awards recognize teachers and staff through nominations made by students, parents, and community. So there's some exciting things that the GEF has going on. There is going to be, this past weekend, the Hawk's Nest was opened up at the high school, and they did a soft reopening, just a soft opening, to get a feel for people being able to come in and purchase some clothing and be able to see the Hawk's Nest. They are going to do, the high school is going to be doing a photo op with the GEF. Once we get that information, I'll share it with the board, so the board can attend as well. You're welcome to come, but we're looking forward to having an opening of that, so then during the school day, students can be purchasing things, the students can be running the store, and then getting ready for next fall with that as well. So, you know, as we've heard from each of our schools so far, and each of them have come up with a different thing, so now Mr. Manti has to be even more creative, and that's why we saved him for last, so we have the most time to prepare. But we continue to do things that we continue to try and do things that we did pre-pandemic, right? I mean, you're still seeing a Lego club, students working together. We're still mentoring teachers. We're still doing all these pieces that are really valuable for our families and our students. There's some things we can't do, because I was going through my notes from last year at this time, and it was the week before, it was the 50th Chili Day. It was 50th, you know, we just had that. And so, like, that's something that we couldn't do this year, something the boosters couldn't do. But there's things that we can do in a safe and effective way with necessary COVID precautions, and we've been able to do that, which we're very proud of that, and appreciative of all the work that people are doing to be able to make that occur for us. And with that, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff? All right, then we're on to public comment. Any public comment to be made this evening? Seeing none, then we'll move on to item D, filling of a board vacancy. I received an email from John Skolman indicating a decision that he made to resign his seat from the board effective today, February 22nd. In a subsequent call, he asked and has sent to me a statement that he'd like read into the record, and I'll do that. So this is John's statement. My time helping out in the Grafton School District has been one of the most rewarding and positive experiences of my life. I've had the privilege of meeting what would have to be hundreds of good people trying to make our schools a better place. If I had known how fulfilling it would have been to work with a school and community as a younger person, I'd certainly have pursued a career as a teacher. Regrettably, and for personal reasons, I'm resigning from my position on the school board, and I will not be returning to work. I was not asked or told to resign. My resignation was initiated by me. I have only well wishes and high expectations for the students and the dedicated employees of the Grafton School District, and I am truly grateful for having had the opportunity to serve. So we accept John's resignation, of course, and thank him for his service these past 3 years as he has commenced his work and going about his work for the school district. But with that, we now have a vacancy to fill, and I've asked Jeff to kind of walk through. I mean, most likely know that we have a board policy relative to vacancy. That policy is promulgated based upon statute, so I've asked administration to look into the parameters regarding filling a board vacancy and refresh us all on that.
Yes, so the policy is 142.5 so it's in our zeros, it's 01425.5 in our bylaws. And with the upcoming board election already coming, and John had already expressed that he was not running for re-election, so we knew that there was going to be a vacancy. We referred to board policy, but then with the upcoming election coming on the 6th, I asked Topher to reach out to Bob Butler, who is our WASB's legal counsel, to give a legal opinion, to see, well, what we have policy. With the election coming up, it's a unique situation, right? And so Bob had said that we were required within 60 days to have someone fill that spot. So there's, according to board policy, people have to extend an email or a letter of interest to the board. There's, as Topher and I have discussed this internally, and then he talked to Bob Butler, we really believe that there are two options for the board to consider because of the election coming so quickly. So one would be that we could have interested people apply to be on the board and then appoint someone before the April 6th election. Okay, so that would be one option. That person would then, depending on the election results, that person may be replaced by someone else or maybe the one that stays on the board. We would obviously, with both these options, we'd reach out to the two candidates, although they're probably listening right now because I see both of them. But we would ask them to send a letter of interest. The second one would be to say, have interested people to apply to be on the board, and then have the board wait and appoint someone on April 12th. We already have committee meetings scheduled that night. We have to have it by the 22nd of April, but we already have committee meetings scheduled for April 12th. That would allow the election results to be posted. It would allow that person to be, the person that was elected by the community to be seated just a couple weeks earlier before the April board meeting that would go with it. So those are reviewing policy. If we did either one of those, that would fulfill the board policy. It would also fulfill state statute, which is also an important part.
So those are the policies and technical parameters associated with filling this vacancy. Are there any questions?
Do we also have the option to just move our April board meeting up 1 week? Would that also fulfill it?
Yes.
And in that way, it's not a special meeting now of the whole board. We just moved the 26th meeting to the 19th.
I'm pulling up calendar right now. Yep.
Unless that's a conflict with people's schedules.
Do people have conflict? What committees were on, I should know, it's curriculum and what's it, and finance?
We were gonna meet in March, right? Finance? Yeah.
So April is curriculum, is there policy, Steve?
There will be.
And
Yep, we're
policy.
meeting tomorrow morning with Neola. New policies are coming.
Yes, there'll be a policy meeting.
All right,
Exciting news.
So that would be on the 12th.
right, on the 12th, I was just seeing if we already all have to be here anyway, on the 12th.
But
But
just,
I don't mind having it on the 19th.
Seating of board members is on the fourth Monday in April,
Mm-hmm.
of new board members. So that would, the election be, so in terms of whether it's the 12th or the 19th, the fourth Monday is when a new board member would get seated.
but that's not within the 60 days, I guess.
Correct.
But if we
Well-
moved our board meeting, does it have to be by state law the fourth Monday, or is it at your next board, like,
Well, it says, so in the guide for candidates, it says school board members take office on the fourth Monday in April, April 26th, 2021. I don't know if that affects this, but I just wanted to make sure we were aware of that.
I would obviously feel more comfortable appointing someone after the election, you know, because then we're just appointing whoever the community is determined they would like on the board.
So Jeff, in your comment about the 12th, we could appoint one of the candidates that wins the election on the 12th.
Correct.
We could appoint them and then they're officially sworn in on the 26th.
Well, but technically, if I'm not mistaken, that appointment would be to finish the term. The election would then be to start their elected term on the 26th of April. So they're two separate transactions, if you will. They may end up being filled by the same person, but it is my understanding is that it's two separate actions.
Right, because you have one incumbent, so Jerry's the incumbent, so he's still a board member until on the 12th, no matter what, right?
Right.
And, you know, like so one of those other two would have won that open seat, that would be the one that would be seated if you
Right.
went in that direction.
And
Just on the off chance, though, not that I think this would happen, Jerry, if Jerry would happen to not win the election, not that I think that we would be left with the awkward situation, we would have two people who had won the election and we can only seat one of them. No?
But it's,
Yes, but
Yeah.
the next board meeting, I
On the
mean, there really wouldn't be any action to take until they're both seated on the
Correct.
26th.
Whoever the person would be that you'd be seating on the 12th wouldn't be on a committee, wouldn't be giving,
right.
So let me just ask this, I mean, I'm hearing a bit of a consensus that there's no desire to take applications and interview candidates for appointment or for possible consideration of appointment prior to the April election. I mean, the policy and statute allow us to wait the full 60 days, so can we agree on, a nod? We can agree on that, okay. So now we're talking about the selection of an appointment based upon the results potentially of the April election and the timing of that appointment, whether it's on the 12th, because, would you be proposing a special meeting?
We would post for a special meeting before we would have we'd move then from that special meeting into curriculum, into policy.
Committee meetings?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So, with it being two separate things, I think you're right, we have to keep our 26th board meeting, because that's when their official term would start.
Yes.
So if it's the 12th or 19th, yeah, so I would think the 12th would be fine.
Okay,
Because we don't have to do board positions and all of that,
Correct.
that's just nothing more for a 2-week.
right.
Yep, that's correct.
Yep.
Okay.
That's correct.
Everybody good with that concept? I think it'd be appropriate for anyone who's interested in serving on the board, those that might be here this evening, to send me, as the board president, a notice or some statement indicating your intention to serve on the board, and I suspect anybody else that may be watching the same thing. It's quite possible that there might be others, right?
Anything's possible.
We would, so if interested in receiving an appointment to the board, if you could send me something relative to that interest and your qualifications and background and why you would like us to consider, that would be great. Anything else, Jeff, on
Nope,
this
I
item?
think if we do that, then we're in
Anyone have any
a good
questions?
spot.
So on the
Final
12th,
thoughts?
the plan is on the 12th, we would vote to appoint somebody for that seat from most likely the pool from the election.
Yes. Right now, unless somebody has the plan would be to receive from those that might be interested in indication for this appointment, and that the board would then consider an appointment at that April 12th meeting. And
So for that meeting, we would need to make sure that we had at least 4 of us at whatever meetings first, correct?
yes, we would have to ensure, well, we would call a board meeting, a special
Special,
board
yeah.
meeting, and ensure that we have a quorum for that meeting. I guess under the statutes, are we obligated to interview
No.
and make a selection
No.
other than perhaps the
board
results of
may
the election?
interview. It says that the vacancy is not filled within 60 days of the date on which the vacancy first exists. The
Okay.
vacancy shall be filled by appointment of the board president. So if you get to pass, so if we were to get to a spot where you had a 3-3 tie, you
Yeah.
know, then the policy states then the board
Yeah.
president appoints someone. So there's
Right.
no, it says they may be interviewed, but you don't have to interview at all.
Okay. So is that clear to everyone? Jerry, did I answer that question? Yep. Yep.
And
Is
I-
there a
I-
deadline for when they need to send their letter or their statement of interest?
April 11th.
I would say inside of 2 weeks. Is that reasonable? What
It's
is-
2 weeks of the 12th. or
No,
today.
inside of 2 weeks from this evening.
Let's see, yeah.
So if we would say
Or-
Monday,
or do-
March 8th?
Do we
Right.
want to provide more time?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe we need any more time, so.
Monday, March 8th. Is
Monday,
that-
March 8th, yeah.
Does that sound good? So I do want to share with the board too, that I did meet with John on Friday, and if you remember back with Julia and with Terry, when they've left, we've given that silver bowl What is it? Crystal, it's not silver. Crystal, I was trying to think of the fancy name that we had for this. I'm thrown off tonight for some reason. The crystal bowl that has like the little hands on there, and it says for appreciation. So I did meet with John and give him that, thank him for his years of service on the board, support he's provided to our district. And I know we'll see him volunteering in our schools through with moving into next year, so 2 kids in our system. So I did meet with him and thank him for that. Luckily, Carrie had already ordered that. Otherwise, we'd be presenting it at next month's board meeting, but I was able to give that to him and thank him for that.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
Okay, then let's move on to committee reports. We had 2 committee meetings, February 8th. First, the curriculum committee, Carrie.
Yeah, curriculum met first at 6 p.m. We went over the new textbook adoption process, which mainly involves that teachers have to develop their new course or to add new curriculum. They did a curriculum inventory, they look at enrollment of the classes, the teacher then has to meet with 1 or 2 of the coaches and then meet with Diana. And then it'll be decided whether or not to go ahead with the new curriculum, and then we monitor in year 2 to see how the curriculum's working out. The first one in this process was the new geology and earth systems, so we looked at some textbooks, and recommendation is coming at item K tonight. We're recommending a new textbook for the geology and earth systems. Then we reviewed district map data that was taken this winter. Overall, it's showing great improvement. Math was definitely challenging, and they've said math is obviously even harder to do virtually than reading, but we'll be taking more data in the spring, and they know the areas to improve and the areas that they really are succeeding at. I know it's been a tough year for everyone, but it showed good results. And that was it.
Thank you, Carrie. Any questions for Carrie? If not, Mark, the finance committee then.
So yes, the Finance Committee met on Monday, February 8th. Also, we had a number of items on the agenda. First was the 2019-2022 audit report. Eric Kennedy from Riley, Penner, and Benton joined us virtually and walked us through the audit report and went through the findings, which were not glaring by any means, pretty common occurrences for us, and we'll talk more as that was brought to the full board for approval tonight. We reviewed the liquidated damages for employees. We also reviewed the cleaning service contract with Total Cleaning Services, and we'll be bringing that to the full board tonight for recommended approval for a 3-year contract with them. We went through the 2021, 2022 revenue projection and membership and enrollment numbers, which have changed. Not the enrollment and membership numbers, but revenue projections. Tied into that were the ESSER II funds, and that also has changed since, I think, was that the day after our meeting? So a couple changes that we'll get some updates on tonight. And then lastly, we previewed some renderings for the enhancing our future update and get an update on that project too.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? Seeing none, then let's move on to the personnel report.
Yes, so we have just some informational situations here. We have resignation of Leah Gannon, a special education aide at Kennedy Elementary School. And then we have 2 new hires, Sarah Fandler, special education aide at Woodview, and Angela Goss, as special education aide at Elementary School. No teacher separations or hires. So just informational only.
Okay, let's move on to item G, stay safe to stay open.
Yes, so this is, so Laura and I are gonna tag team on this. And walk you through this, just as a reminder, the priorities that we've had all along continue to be our priorities, the health and safety, quality instruction, efficient and safe operations, and the flexibility and responsiveness, being able to pivot. CDC guidelines were released. That was sort of the big thing that people have been waiting for. They came out and basically included measures that we've been following, which was great news for us, in all honesty. That there wasn't something that we were like, oh my gosh, we should have been doing that all along. Some of the things that we talked about, universal and correct use of face coverings, physical distancing maximized to the greatest extent possible, cohorting of students to help us with contact tracing, and the whole cleaning and maintaining healthy facilities. Being able to have those MERV 13 air filters has been just a huge benefit for us. One of the things that they don't state specifically, but when you look at when you click that guideline piece, it shows a 2-page handout, and one of the things you'll notice is they talk about maximizing the space with students, but what you'll notice when you look at the picture is there's very little furniture in those rooms, and that's one of the things that we also did well in advance. When you look at our district and you go to each building, there are multiple storage areas where we're storing all of our stuff, and so you've cleared out everything to get as much maximum distance as possible away from people, which has helped us as well to be able to, when someone does get sick, there is less people having to be contact traced that goes with that. So at each of our buildings, that's something that Jamie's done a great job of, and our staff has done a great job of looking at that. Principals went through each of the rooms before the year began to sort of say, okay, is this essential? What can we move to make the biggest areas possible for our students that went with it? So that's great. And then last week, we marked our 100th day of school, which is a huge deal. So we continue to see our mitigation strategies in place, staff and students being effective and working hard, parents partnering with us, which has allowed us to continue to stay open, which is great. So we have some of our young learners and some of our elderly learners that dressed up for the 100 days. So elementary school got to have a little fun, and 100 Days Smarter, and a lot of those 100 Days with Gnomes. Some elderly people, some of the students dressed up as an elderly person, some of our staff dressed up as elderly people. So great that they got to celebrate that in person, opportunities to be able to do that, and just really a fun day at the elementaries as they celebrate that 100-day celebrations, and our staff taking part of it, which is also great. I know kids look forward to that. Health update, we continue to have weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings with the health department, with the North Shore Conference. We continue to look at our data across the county. It's high, no change of trajectory, and high case status. But if you look back, if we look at the data now, it was back in September, the first maybe couple weeks of school was the last time we were this low. So you remember we were in very high, and then they don't even have that other color that's at the top. That isn't a name for that. And so it's, even though we're in the high category, we're continuing to see a downward trajectory, which is great. Health Department continues to report that with vaccinations starting to roll out, people being hospitalized, all those pieces, and even looking at our own data, we're seeing data that we haven't seen as this good in a long time, and I'll let Laura walk us through.
And it does look beautiful. This is a snapshot from this morning. So currently we have no positive student cases, only one staff member, and about half of the quarantined students, half of that 34, they're coming back this week. So our numbers are looking really good.
Yeah, it's great to see student cases 0%. Right, 1.7% of students quarantined, with more students than we've ever had in person. So we continue to, we'll talk about fourth quarter and people choosing, but we continue to see people requesting to come back in person and working towards that.
So kind of continuing, this is our 5th month. We have just a little fewer positive cases of COVID among our students. Again, this is where the origin of these quarantines are coming from, so whether or not they're sick themselves or they got a household member that's sick, if they were close contact to somebody at school versus outside of school, and our numbers just continue to come down. So this is looking like it's trending in the right direction. And then the CDC released some guidance on quarantining following full vaccination, which our Wisconsin DHS and then our local health department adopted. So what they're saying is after somebody's been fully vaccinated, after that second shot, if they're exposed to somebody positive 2 weeks after that, they do not have to quarantine themselves, as long as they're within that 90 days following the last dose and they have no symptoms themselves. So that's good news. That'll keep, once our staff continue to get vaccinated, that'll keep our staff in the building once they're exposed. Okay.
So that's sort of a big, does everyone understand that? That was big news. And it sounds like the 90 days might even get extended as well. They're still waiting to see how is the vaccine, or how is it working and so forth. The health department says that they believe that will eventually be extended to longer than the 90 days after the receipt of it. But this was really good news for staff getting vaccinated, and it was great that we got that news.
And that 2 weeks, that initial 2 weeks is part of that 90 days. So you get your second dose, you need 2 weeks.
That second dose marks the first day of those 90 days.
Of the 90 days,
Yeah.
but you need the 2 weeks.
But those first 2 weeks, they're still kind of vulnerable to the disease, so if they're exposed during those 2 weeks, they still would have to quarantine.
Yep, okay, got it.
And this is stuff now that we weren't planning on, it's an optional thing for staff to be vaccinated anyways. But now staff share, when they share when they get the vaccination, then we're tracking that internally so we can know if they do come in close contact, do they need to quarantine, do they not? All those pieces that go with it.
Okay, so continuing with staff attendance, you can see that the daily absence rate for January this year was essentially the same as it was a year ago. And staff absences in January are lower than they were in both December and November. And then students. Student attendance shows significantly fewer vacation days in January compared to a year ago. The number of sick days, where kids only have like one symptom, is roughly the same as it was in November and December. But our in-person, virtual, and the COVID-19 related codes, those are half of what they were back in December. So our students are in school more frequently, we have a lot less absences, and learning is happening. Overall, student attendance is actually better in January this year than it was a year ago. And then the Department of Health Services, they still intend to move forward with the next eligible group of people that can get vaccinated. It's the phase 1B. They're looking still at March 1st. However, there aren't enough doses to really make a huge dent in that quite yet. They're still working on the 1As. So all of our therapists, our counselors, our school psychs, our health room workers in the district, they've had the opportunity to get vaccinated, and a lot of them have. And then last week, the health department let us know that they are also going to include special education teachers and paraprofessionals in this 1A group. So I sent out a survey to our staff to see who was interested, and of those that were, I sent on their names, their emails, and their phone numbers onto the health department so they can start getting them worked into this first 1A group. And then this slide just kind of shows who's in that phase 1B group. So education, K-12, higher ed, daycare, preschools, and over 65. And like I said, once the 1A group is fully vaccinated, they're going to start moving into that 1B. But like last week, Tyler Weber from the health department said they only had like 200 doses. And this week they were anticipating about 500. But they have like 35,000 people over the age of 65 that are waiting to be vaccinated. So this is just going to take some time to roll out and get everybody vaccinated who want to be.
What are the procedures for those special ed and the paraprofessionals that are now in 1A? How do they go about actually getting vaccinated? Is that coordinated through the health department?
Yes,
or?
it is. So
Okay.
the names and the phone numbers and emails that I sent to them, they will start calling these people and letting them know when they have doses available, and then they can schedule those appointments.
Okay, so you don't have to go to Walgreens or,
People can do that.
Well, they
you
can.
can, but,
People can do Walgreens, they can do other local providers if they have the vaccine. The Walgreens is the one that made the paper, so people could do that. That would be outside the health department that they're doing it. And the health department said they're gonna reserve a certain percentage every week to be able to spread that out amongst the districts and try and allocate fairly so that it isn't one district getting all of it and someone's gonna have to be last. It's just that's how it's gonna work, but they're gonna try and allocate as they get more and more doses to be able to get certain people from each district, and a certain number from each district to get vaccinated.
Are they doing that at all based on whether, percentage virtual versus in person?
They're not. Nope, good question.
That makes too much sense.
I was on a statewide call on that, and that was a question that was asked to DHS is why aren't they, if you're in person, shouldn't you be moved up the ladder versus someone who's totally virtual? And at this point, it has not been changed.
Are there other partnership avenues we can pursue for vaccination? I mean, Aurora being a strong partner of the district, as opposed to running solely through the Department of Public Health.
Yes, Aurora had reached out to me previously, probably, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and had said we'd be interested, and I said, yes, we would be. Had reached back out, and they have our contact information if they're able to do that for us, and they would,
Okay.
and we would work with that. There's a local agency that Laura's reached out to as well, to see if that would be a partnership that they might be interested in doing with us also. I don't think she'd heard back. Okay, we talked this morning. We haven't talked since, but we haven't heard back. But that's something we are researching that as well to see if there's other options because of the shortage of the vaccines. And then last but not least, as we get ready for fourth quarter, we are going to be giving our parents that option to change their child's instructional setting for the fourth quarter if desired. So we'll be sending a survey out and asking parents between Friday, March 5th and Friday, March 12th to give us their decision. Fourth quarter begins on April 6th. So once we get into that first week of March, we'll be sending a survey out and giving parents a week to be able to make a change. It'll be similar to what we did for third quarter. If they don't if they don't respond, then they're in the same mode that they're in now. But if they want to make a change, then they can make a change on that. And with that, that concludes our Stay Safe to Stay Open.
Any questions? So one thought that I had, Jeff, and the Washington Ozaukee Public Health Department categorization or classification of burden is, and it's breaks between moderate or low, moderate, moderately high, high, very high, and whatever the purple is, critically high, is substantially different than CDC. Have there been any comments on the calls relative to those differences? I mean, CDC has, of course, they're blue, yellow, orange, and red.
Yeah, no, I don't think recently, because there were so many models. There were so many models that were out there at the beginning. If you can remember us looking back in like July and August, and we were looking at the various studies that were out there. There's the Harvard study. There's a Minnesota model. There's an Arizona model. There's all these models that states went with, and it seems like CDC then chose their area, and even the CDC, their recommendations. There are no mandates. So it doesn't say, if you can't do this, then you can't be open, or you have to be open. These are all pieces that say it's similar to recommendations. There's no mandate that goes with it.
Right.
So we haven't really discussed it because the burden piece, the burden, in my opinion, and in discussions with other superintendents, the burden was something that was created when we thought that if we got to that point, that's when hospitals were going to be packed.
Right.
We'd never seen this before. So if you get to this burden, then obviously, everything's going to shut down, and that didn't occur. I mean, we see, across the nation, various things that were done to make sure we had, a ship so someone could have an emergency hospital, making State Fair, a place for hospital beds, all those things that were done in a proactive way, just not knowing. And so I think the burden has become less and less of a discussion of what that means for a district, because what's happened in the community hasn't necessarily been representative of what's happening in our buildings.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just find it
discussion.
interesting that in reading the CDC guidance, the suggestion that they have in their own guidance is that when you get to that red, you should be moving to virtual. And our own experience and the data that we have and the science that we're subscribing to would suggest, no, that's not the case.
Correct. So if we were virtual and we have so if we move to virtual, we have 0 kids. We have 0 kids right now and 1 staff member. So 1.7% of our students are quarantined, and we'd be moving to a hybrid
Right.
model.
And by CDC's recommendation, we'd be in high transmission.
Right, correct.
We'd be in the red category.
So
But it doesn't make sense,
It doesn't.
in my opinion.
It
I was
doesn't.
just curious if there was any discussion as to whether or not there'd try to be some type of alignment. I'm glad that there's not.
Correct. Yeah, that's where local control has been great, right?
Yeah.
The board, the decisions you've made that have enabled us to be in this spot of where we made it through 100 days of school. We're about ready to go into March. We continue to be open, and we continue to see people still doing the mitigation measures that we believe work and that are working right now. And parents are still doing a great job, and I think it's been a learning curve for everyone to figure out, when do I keep my kid home, when do I stay home, all those pieces, so that it doesn't become a spread, which can be the problem.
Good.
Jeff, I assume we can't require staff to notify the district if they've been vaccinated. Is that correct?
We couldn't require that, but if you've been vaccinated and you're a close contact, then you wouldn't need to quarantine. So it behooves someone to let us know.
Right. Okay,
that
so
they
then we
wouldn't
track
have-
it. Obviously, they're not required, but then
But yeah,
somebody
we
gets
will be-
vaccinated, they say,
We will be we'll have that information so that we know when there's a close contact situation, whether or not we have to have someone quarantined.
But we aren't requiring staff to become vaccinated.
Yeah.
We aren't requiring.
No,
Yep, we aren't doing that. And with the change of the guidance for close contact, that's when it resulted in us, okay, we're gonna need to know what the dates are. Because then the program can figure that out, and if they extend it past 90 days, then Rick just enters in a new number, and it automatically tells you when that could occur.
Would we still notify that employee, even if they were vaccinated, that they were within close contact?
That would make sense.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they would still be notified.
Any other questions? I think I just once again want to thank, Jeff, your team, and all of the administrators, all the educators, parents, and students that, despite the guidance that is issued on February 12th, which I believe that we have been always and continue to remain in full and substantial compliance with all of the requirements that are in there. But even before those requirements were put to paper, we had them put to paper and committed to practice. I mean, both within our staff, through our students, and with our parents. It's absolutely remarkable, the work that's been done. And, the fact that we have maintained what we have for the first 100 days with evidence that it'll go well beyond 100 days. So thank you very much for all of those efforts.
Thank you, the board, for your support.
Item H, approval of the 2019-20 audit report.
Yes, as Mark referenced earlier at the Finance Committee, we did have Eric Kennedy from our audit firm, Riley Penner and Benton, able to attend virtually to give us a full review of the audit process, including using professional standards, management being prepared and cooperative, financial results, including the increase of $189,000 to fund balance, as well as findings that are typical that we receive in pretty much every year. Questions were able to be asked by the Finance Committee, along with discussions along those topics regarding the audit, again with Eric Kennedy there to answer those questions and help deal with some of those discussions. After those discussions and the presentation, Finance Committee did recommend sending to the full board approving the 2019-2020 audit as required by board policy.
Based upon the work that's been conducted by the Finance Committee and the results of the audit report, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2019-2020 audit report as presented.
So moved. Second.
Any questions? All those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed? And it passes. The cleaning contract renewal, item I.
Yes, so also at the Finance Committee, the administration brought forward an offer essentially to extend our cleaning contract, which we're in the third year with Total Cleaning. So this would be our final year. We have an opportunity, thank you. We have thank you, yes. We have an opportunity to extend our contract with them for another 3 years with no price increases. We were able to discuss this at the Finance Committee, take a look at this, and also point out that we are very happy with the service that we are receiving from the company right now, from Total Cleaning. In talking at administrative meetings with building administrators, as well as what Jamie has heard from staff, there really has been a few hiccups. They've done a great job. We haven't had complaints like we've had from previous providers regarding our cleaning service. So we are recommending, and the Finance Committee, after discussing this, recommended bringing to the full board approving a 3-year contract extension with Total Cleaning, again with no increase in price.
Again, relying on the work of the Finance Committee and the discussion there. Entertain a motion to adopt and approve the 3-year extension of our cleaning services agreement, Total Cleaning Systems.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed? And it passes. 2021-22 projected revenue.
All right, this was also a topic of discussion at the Finance Committee 2 weeks ago. We took a look at revenue projections for 2021-22, some of the assumptions that we are making, and these are assumptions that certainly will change over time as we move forward towards seeing what the next biennial budget looks like. But some of the current revenue assumptions we have are that we'll have an adjusted revenue limit decrease of nearly $134,000. This is based on the assumption that there would be no increase in the maximum revenue per member allowed, as well as a decrease of from 1,945 to 1,921 in our 3-year membership average. It also assumes that per pupil aid will remain the same at $742 per member, and that is a decrease because of the decreasing 3-year membership average. It also assumes an increase in open enrollment tuition, which is we'll talk about this a little later, certainly a change from previous years where we would assume a decrease in open enrollment tuition. Investment income, we're assuming that there'll be about a $40,000 decrease. Obviously, interest rates much lower than they were many years ago, or just even within the past year. And then we have a assumption of $24,000 in increased admissions revenue. Overall, this would be about $114,000, $115,000 decrease in revenue from these sources. In addition, looking forward to next year, the ESSER II funds are looking to be available next year, based on decisions we make this year, to cover continuing COVID costs in next year's budget. And so we referenced this earlier. There's a bit of a change with ESSER II, so we'll talk about that a little bit. So it had been allocated by DPI, where 90% of ESSER II funds were allocated based on the Title I formula. That gave us $186,693 based on Title I. That was, for us, that's $94 per student. It will be available this spring and could be claimed, or it could be held off into the future. We have till September of 2023 to claim funds through ESSER II. If after your Title I allotment you did not have $100,000, all districts were brought up to $100,000, then, again, this is the previous allocation, every district was guaranteed a minimum of $395 per student. This garnered us over $600,000 of additional ESSER II funds. This is the portion that was pulled back. Joint Finance Committee met and decided that they would pull those funds back and instead, taking just districts, about 172 districts, that did not have that $395 and received that allocation to get up to $395 per student, would instead be allocated, that money would be pulled and reallocated based instead, not on how far below $395 you are, but rather on your share of in-person instructional hours between all 172 districts that would be eligible to share in those funds. What that means, there's about $65 million in about 172 districts statewide with 350,000 students that can share in that money. Now, if that were to be shared equally, we know it won't because there are some districts that are completely virtual. We know that we are face-to-face 5 days a week. But if it were shared equally, if everyone was 100% in person, we would receive about $182 per student. That comes to roughly $360,000 instead of the $601. Now, other models have been put together assuming all Dane County districts are virtual and all other districts are 85% in person. If that were the case, and we don't know yet whether that would be, people still have to make decisions on spring, whether they're coming back or not. If that were the case, we'd receive about $414,000. Now, the piece with this is, whereas before, we had the $601,000, it was going to be available this spring to potentially allocate as we saw fit, reserving a portion for next year's budget to make sure we have funds for that. We are not going to know, most likely until fall of next year, what our share of that additional portion is. Again, we'll get the $186,000 this spring. That doesn't change. That other portion, and I would estimate that if on average, out of the 172 districts, the 350,000 students, if they are in person about half the time, we would probably get about $600,000. It's a rough estimate, but again, we won't know till fall. And that's when we'd know how much additional funding we would get. So, knowing that, certainly we can hold back, knowing that we should get, at least in addition to the 186, another 300. I'm sure much more than that, but we can hold off and see what our COVID expenditures look like next year, knowing that we will have funds to cover that, but we would have to hold off right now on necessarily allocating, freeing up money in this year's budget to cover costs that we would have otherwise covered. That being said, that could change if, say, ESSER 3 funds come out and those get allocated in a timely fashion. That would let us make different decisions, but that's something that we'll have to look at as it develops.
That decision is made by the Joint Finance Committee alone, correct?
Correct.
There's no legislative approval process for that. They're able to allocate that.
They are able to do it. Yes, they're able to do that, and even if it could be vetoed, it's veto proof. The vote was veto proof. So certainly the intention by the Joint Finance Committee to reward districts that are in person, right? And so we are certainly advantaged in how that's put together, but we're also very advantaged in how it was also put forward in DPI with the fact that we were so far from $395 per student that we received a sizable allocation in that formula as well. Any question? I know the ESSER 2 might be this is the new information. Any questions on that before I move on?
Any idea when they're going to make that?
3 or 2?
2.
2 next fall. They have to wait till everybody's school year's over. DPI has to figure out how we're going to report in-person instructional hours. Then they gather that data. They'll have to, run it through the system and then allocate funds based on that data that's collected. And that's why the belief is it's going to be probably fall, at best late summer, that they'd be able to allocate those additional funds.
So looking back at our finance meeting, there was about 343,000, almost 344,000 of.
For next year in
next year.
Anticipated
Right.
COVID costs, yes. And so certainly with the 186 plus additional pieces, upwards of at least 360, more, I'm certain more. Even if COVID costs are higher than expected, we could cover that. Again, we'll have to take a look at this as we move through the spring, and we can better forecast what our COVID costs next year will be, and make decisions that are appropriate based on that information.
Additional questions? Don't need anything, well,
Okay, well, then I'll move on
Keep
to
moving on here.
other pieces. So the membership projection. As you can see, membership, again, the assumption that membership is going down. next year. You can see from that 1,945 to 1921. We do have a couple more years of some large graduating classes, and then you can see it starts to level out a little bit as we bring in some classes that are smaller. Now, how does this affect our revenue? If you take a look at 2021 on the right, that's our projected revenue for next year. Now, if you go back to 2019-20, you can see that in blue, that was our base revenue limit calculation. We did not receive any hold harmless that year because even though we had declining enrollment, the amount that was allocated per member increased enough to put us over the previous year's base calculation. So all we received above the base calculation was the declining enrollment. The year we're in right now, 2020-21, current year, we had declining enrollment. We didn't receive, even with the increase in the per member amount, $179 per student, it still didn't get up to the base calculation from the prior year. So we did receive a small amount, about $25,000, in that hold harmless exemption. Then on top of it, we received our declining enrollment. Based on projections of declining enrollment of roughly 24 students or so, we would, if there is no per member increase, we would still get about, after the initial calculation, we'd be short of last year's base calculation. We'd get a hold harmless to get us back up to that 21,086,000, and then get the declining enrollment on top of that. I show this because as we work through the budget process, if the biennial contains a per member increase, that doesn't necessarily mean the district will have additional revenue next year. For example, if they increased the per member amount by $135, that really would just take us up to about the base revenue amount from the prior year and eliminate the hold harmless. And then we'd still get the declining enrollment piece on top of that. But really, no new spendable revenue. However, certainly a benefit because without that increase in per member amount, that $20,826,000, that's the base for the next year. Certainly, having a higher base going into the following year is good for our long-term finances. The other piece is, and what's nice is, come late June, early July, we should know what the biennial budget has in terms of a per member increase. Now, for example, if it is $135 per member, then we can kind of build some scenarios on what kind of revenue we can expect based on changing membership. So we have on the left, that is the scenario that I showed earlier. Here on the right, where we have a $135 per member increase with our current projections of a loss of membership. If you move to the right, that middle column, if our 3-year average goes up by 10, you can see that our base revenue calculation goes up, but then that is essentially canceled out by we don't have as big a declining enrollment exemption, so we get roughly the same amount of money, even if we have more, a higher membership than projected. On the flip side, the last column there, if our membership drops, our 3-year membership drops by 10, you can see that our base revenue calculation is lower. That's made up for with the hold harmless exemption. And then our declining enrollment is even bigger because our declining enrollment is a bigger number calculated by that per member amount. So we get more money if we have less kids. However, as you can see, not good long term, as our base revenue limit is lower going into the next year, hold harmless, and declining enrollment fall off going into the next year. But again, what should help us is come late June, early July, we'll know what that increase might be for per member, and then we can figure out what different, what 3-year membership averages would do to our budget. Now, another piece, obviously membership those are students who live in our district. Some, most, right, great majority, come and attend here, but some open enroll out. That's our membership, right? But we also have students who are enrolled here, go here, but they're open enrolling in. So we're able to include students that open enroll out in our membership. We get money for them, and then we send most of it to the districts that they enroll in. Opposite is true for open enroll in. Those kids come in, they fill seats that we do have available without having to add staff, and then those districts send us money for that. Now, last year, 2020-21, after a number of years of declining revenue and open enrollment in revenue, we actually had an increase in our revenue coming in from that source. One reason that we believe that was the case is certainly the fact that we had a plan, detailed plan, out in July, 5 days a week, in-person instruction that made us an attractive option in open enrollment, and we had more kids open enrolling in. It also helps that we've stabilized our special ed population within open enrollment in that has a larger dollar amount. Now that that's stabilized, that's not fluctuating either. Then on the open enrollment out, you can see that that number continues to increase. That's a fairly stable number of students. It's been a stable number of students over time. The dollar amount goes up each year, so that the funds going out tend to increase over time. But the net revenue, after going down for a number of years, primarily because of open enrollment in revenue decreasing, increased last year, and we're projecting again an increase primarily because of a smaller senior class of open enroll kids in that we would be graduating. So expenditure assumptions next year, even though there's a lot of work to do before we can finally determine what our expenditures are, we are assuming salary increases for teaching staff, LBC being added to the next year's salary, longevity bumps that are scheduled, and a standard wage increase that would be roughly, right now, a 2.2 to 2.3% salary increase, and then a 2% increase for all other employee groups. We're assuming the maximum increase in our health insurance premium, a 9.9% renewal, which again, maximum per the contract. Then we're assuming a 3% increase in utilities, workers' comp increase based on the fact that we have a really good year dropping off of our 3-year experience mod calculation. Again, that increase in the open enrollment out tuition that I mentioned earlier. Now, taking a look at that enrollment piece. Again, enrollment, so many of these are in our membership. They're in our revenue limit if they're resident, district resident students, right? But then we're also receiving money because we're seeing more kids open enroll in than out. That gap is increasing. That's helping our enrollment. What you can see here is and it'll mirror membership somewhat closely, right? We're anticipating a decline in enrollment. You can see it leveling out a little bit as you get out into the future. You have smaller graduating classes. When we have these drops in enrollment, they often come with a need for less FTE and staff. But there are times when you look out in the future, whether it's 16 or even 13 students in a given year, if that's spread across one per grade, you're not necessarily going to see a need to decrease FTE. On a point of optimism, we currently have 2,014 students enrolled. And this is a net addition of 21 students since January 1st. 17 of those students are elementary students. The other 4, John Long Middle School. So their kids, that net increase, are in grades that are going to stick with us. In addition, the housing trends in the village, obviously after many, many years, since 2010, of being in the single digits and low teens, we're looking at having a third year where single housing permits are up in the 40s or even up in the 50s. Again, the 2021 is an estimate, 2019, 2020, that's actual. So obviously, this can only help the district by bringing in families and kids who will enroll in our schools. Still a lot of work to do. Upcoming next month in March, we're going to determine personnel needs based on student enrollment and course selection. We're going to finalize those needs in April. In May, at the Finance Committee and the board meeting, we'll present the preliminary budget. In June, we will finalize that preliminary budget. And all those 4 months, March, April, May, June, we are going to be monitoring the 2021-23 state biennial budget process. In September, we will present the budget at the annual meeting. And then in October, once we get final numbers from the state, we will finalize the budget at the board meeting at the end of October. Any questions on revenue projections?
What method do we use for enrollment projections?
So that is the survivor method, similar to membership. So you take the 5-year average of looking at, say, first graders, and if we have 120, and the next year in second grade there's 122, so that's a +2. Basically, you're taking, what is that survival? What's the average? Do you get 102% of those students who, it sounds funny to call it survival, but on average, we increase that group. I'll give you 2 examples of 2 groups that typically grow. 6th grade typically grows. We tend to have a lot of influx at 6th grade, and especially, of course, at 9th grade. That's where we start to get those grade school kids from the parochial schools. And so that survival rate essentially is 110, 120%, whatever that is. So we see increases, and that takes a 5-year average, it's called the survival cohort, of seeing what that trend is. Now, that doesn't anticipate, right, the increases that we've seen this year.
So it doesn't, these numbers haven't been adjusted to reflect the increase to 2014?
Correct. So
Okay.
we use third Friday numbers.
Yeah,
So
okay.
third Friday is going to be 1,995. So we already start off higher. If those kids come back, we would expect our projections to turn out better
To
than
go out, yeah,
current
okay.
projections.
All right. Okay. Any other questions? I think it's these projections are important to keep in mind. In the housing trends and the permit starts, the fact that there may be pockets of growth within the district, they are not necessarily translating into additional belly buttons in the seats, so to speak. And, reinforcing some of the decisions as family sizes are going down. I mean, we may have more and more families moving in, but not see significant increase in these numbers, right?
Right, because the issue is that it may be people that have kids moving out of state that they're buying it from. Or it may be that people that have their final kid graduates and they're still staying in their house. Right, I mean, so we're losing students, so then those people that are coming in are bringing people, but are they bringing enough? Because we know we have more seniors than we have kindergartners.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're always starting at that, that delta as you're looking at it. So so there's a lot of moving pieces. Topher's done a really nice job of keeping us informed of that at the administrative level and working through all these things and just trying to be able to pivot and look at the data, when it was printed last week we had 211, now we have 214, or 2011, now it's 2014, so that must be us today. I mean, so like, it's a continual piece that we're trying to track and be aware of. We built this in when we did our open enrollment numbers. We use that cohort model. We looked at this a number of times trying to get our hands wrapped around it.
Right. Any additional questions for Topher? Still much work to do.
Yes.
Both here and in Madison. All right. Item K, textbook approval.
All right.
You don't have a presentation with like spreadsheets or anything? You have any graphs for us, Diana?
So Carrie mentioned earlier that we had a textbook adoption review process highlighted at the last curriculum board meeting, which was a couple weeks ago. Mr. Getz came as a guest and talked to the board about his textbook that he's recommending, which is called Inspire Earth Science. He worked on that with Mrs. Schreiner and Mrs. Minty, and made sure all the technology pieces worked, working with Jen Griffith as well. So we talked in depth about that evening, and so tonight I'm asking for the board to approve the adoption of that textbook for geology and earth science. Right? Systems. I always say science. Systems.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Are there any questions? Again, based upon the work that was completed at the curriculum committee and the review and the discussion therein, all those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed? And it passes. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, very nice. I'm impressed.
Item L, gift reports.
Just like at the middle school, we like to have fun when we come to work at district office as well, right? It's not just Rachel saying that they get to have fun. We like to have fun when we come to work as well. So we have 4 different gifts that we're asking the board to receive, accept, and I'm realizing that the reason why that we don't have a picture here is because I didn't give a picture to Kara. Because I have a picture with Oasis Healthcare that we took, and I have that picture, but I did not share it with her, so that is my fault. So we will share that at the next meeting when we get together as a visual. Went to Oasis Healthcare and took a picture with Laura and her staff. 2 of our current students that are seniors work there with her, and one of our parents is also there. So, but they are making a pledge for our Enhancing Our Future campaign of $10,000. So we'll be on our donor wall, and we greatly appreciate them joining us in our Enhancing Our Future campaign. We also have Excalibur Flooring LLC with Roland Catalyst, who has donated the removal of VCT and then polish the concrete in the Northwest Tech Ed hallway at John Long Middle School. There's a value donated of $2,500. And then we have Rick and Julie Seibold donating to the GHS music program, $700 worth of various audio/video adapters, cables, connectors, and splitters that are being used by the music program. And then Grafton Little League has donated to the baseball and softball programs the 2 batting cages that are located on 9th Avenue and are currently being used by the school district with a value of $537. And Greg Schaefer is representing the Grafton Little League for that.
Any questions for Jeff? I'm going to entertain a motion to accept the gifts as presented.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes, of course, with our many thanks to all of the donors. Then I would look, there's no M, so we're moving to closed session, yes?
Please.
Okay. The Board of Education will convene in closed session to consider financial, medical, social, or personal histories of persons which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, in order to discuss the liquidated damages charged to district retirees. This is in accordance with Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85, Section 1, Sub F. Do we have a motion to move into closed?
Second.
Take a voice vote. Joe, how do you vote?
Yes.
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 And yes, we are in closed. Thank you.